Welcome, y'all, to yet another Ultimate the Show with me, your host, Jake. Today we have, how's it, how you say it? Wojtek?
Oh, it's like super difficult. I mean, my last name consists of five consonants, one after another. So the way you pronounce it is Wojtek Wawszczyk. It,
Wojtek. Yeah.
yeah, it's like Wojtek is like toy and tech like technology. So you go like Wojtek. That's me. That's
It,
my.
it, it's such an interesting name for sure. Well,
It is.
yeah. Um,
Actually, I was punished by with this name by my parents, I believe, to make international career.
hey,
Stay home.
attaboy. Uh, well, I guess that'll be a talking point. I guess people bring it up. I guess the first question I'm going to ask, as a long time person in this space, as a creative, what was it that brought you into this world of animation, filmmaking, just everything in general about entertainment?
Yeah. Well, I never dreamed of becoming a filmmaker. It was never my dream, really, or never my initial dream. So what I really loved when I was a kid, I really loved drawing. I mean, I was doing it all the time. I was one of these kids to rather avoid, playing with other children outside. I preferred to stay in my room and grab a pencil or a pen or whatever and create my worlds that were inside of my head. And um and that led me quite quickly to drawing and doing my own making my own graphic novels, comic books. Really
I've seen some of
simple,
those.
but actually these very immature, very simple comic books, they brought me to the film school, to
Hmm.
quite famous film school in Lodz in Poland. It's really famous, especially for directors of photography. I mean, there are plenty of them that won Academy Award, and that was really quite unexpected for me because I was like, yeah, what am I doing here? Even I just I got into that school because somebody recommended it to me, but very quickly, I believe after half a year, I realized that making animation is very, very much in sync to what I had in mind all the time. Because I also had like a very small band, music band with my
Oh,
friends, and making short animation, short movies. That was a combination of everything that I loved before. So drawing
yeah.
and movement and telling
It's
stories and sound.
Yeah, it's all that audio and visuals and all that coming together. It's kind of how I got into it too. I was
Mm.
drawing. I also have a comic background, that's pretty cool. It's crazy how that works, huh? Um, but yeah, you recently adapted it, and I wanted to ask, what was it about Baranowski's work that led you
Yeah.
to wanting to bring it to life like that?
Yeah, well, I actually know that I mean, these books, I mean, these are classic comic books released in Poland back in the 80s. And they were huge. They were like hugely popular in the country. And so I back in the 80s, I was a kid, and
Yeah.
it was 4 years ago. And when I was, I believe, when I was 7, I discovered those books, and they are incredible because they are, I mean, filled with so much strange sense of humor, rich colors, and incredibly expressive
Yeah.
drawings. And I mean, these are one of the very few books that after long, long years, they didn't age. They're extremely fresh even now. And to me, they were so, I mean, they were a source of such a strong impact on me that my first drawings, or my first conscience or good drawings, were actually inspired by these comic books.
Huh.
And later I became friends with the with this author.
Huh.
He's he's over he's 80 now, you know. And we became friends. And many years later, when I was still a student, I got to meet him, and I told him that, you know, one day, if I learned when I learn if I ever learned the craft of filmmaking, I would really love to, you know, turn your ideas into a film. And that took me quite a long time, because all in all, you know, Diplodocus went through the stages of, I mean, everything terrible happened to us really on the way.
Oh shoot.
The preparation and waiting and production time, we couldn't find the money, and then once we got, you know, the money, there was, you know, the pandemics, so everything terrible happened to us really. So
Mm.
all in all, from the idea to the finished, you know, movie, it took us 12 years. And yeah, but I think, you know, these books, they were the original, you know, thing, not just for this film, but I believe, you know, for me as a creative person as well.
Well, that's really awesome to hear. I guess that leads me to my next question. What was probably the craziest thing that happened to y'all during that 12-year development cycle?
Well, I mean, it's I mean, the whole cycle consisted of crazy things. So I believe, you know, one was the that we had to, um, you know, we signed a contract to start the movie on the last day before the first lockdown. So basically, you know, we signed, you know, the contracts and everything. We opened the production on Friday, and then the following Monday, the whole team had to go home, and we
Ah.
were not able to start it really. I mean, obviously, we are trying, you know, to learn, you know, the new environment and somehow adjust to the situation. And we tried, you know, working on the film, but after 6 months, I believe we had only 21 seconds of animation done.
Oof.
So, you know, obviously, you know, later it got better, and we managed, you know, to finish it. But the beginning was terrible. And there were lots of and plenty of crazy things. You know, this film, even though I believe it doesn't look that way, but it was actually made by extremely small team of artists. So um, I think it was six of us that I mean, six of us were the, you know, the heads of the departments, and we sat in the same room for 3 years, and we became like I mean, something more than friends. I mean, we became even a family really. So we've known each other before, and after we complete the project, we still are working together, and we are helping one another in our projects. So that's really cool. I think, you know, making a movie like this and making any big project with really cool and talented and basically really cool people, this just, you know, bonds people together forever. I believe, you know, it's
Yeah.
a bonding experience. So amongst all the craziness, you know, and, you know, bad luck and whatever, you know, we occurred in the way, I think, you know, the outcome of it is that we made this really beautiful movie, and we still can stand one another really.
There's just something about like these tight-knit, like small teams and studios. I don't know. Maybe I just don't like working with a ton of people, but
Mm,
yeah, I like to keep it tight-knit, and it
yeah,
works out somehow. And
yeah, well, you know, I was fortunate, you know, to work as an animator in digital domain when it was still smaller. I worked as an animator on iRobot
oh,
in
wow.
between 2003 and 4, and then later on Flux, and I worked for Disney for a short period of time as well. And we were like 20 something people, you know, 20 something animators back then. It wasn't like 3,000, you know, animators. And we were all together. And I also talked to my friend Chris Pern, you know, the director of the Willoughbys and the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs too.
I like those. I love both of those.
Yeah, I love these films. I really appreciate whatever Chris does, and Chris helps us a lot, with the story development and basically with overall support for Diplodocus. And he told me once that he really loves productions that do not go over 60 people, because basically when you have a team that has more than 60 people, then you have different set of problems to solve. So instead of solving creative problems, you have relationship problems or misunderstandings. So basically, having enormous team doesn't quite help, not always.
Diplodocus is it's kind of like this. It plays with dimensions and like reality bending comic book inspired stuff. And
Yeah.
just right off the bat, is there any piece of media, film, comic, anything that inspired what we eventually got, like that
Oh, yeah.
visual like direction?
Yeah, totally, totally. Because as I mentioned, this film is inspired by the comic books that were published back in the 80s. So having that as a foundation, I thought that I will be looking into inspiration in that period,
Hmm.
in filmmaking and books and music even
Mhm.
cinematography, and I believe I was able to reflect the 80s in the Diplodocus. I mean quite a lot. So basically, from the narrative point of view, I was looking into the movies from the 80s, like Neverending Story, for
Hmm.
instance, which has similar structure of these worlds colliding, intersecting. Or Who Framed Roger Rabbit? That's
Hmm.
another movie similar to this,
I got that.
using also different animation techniques, or mixing live action with animation, which is exactly what Diplodocus does. But also from the cinematography point of view, for instance, I was looking at the classic Spielberg movies together with my DOPs, and because I had two DOPs on the movie, and we looked at old classic, beautiful Spielberg work, and we were using the framing, the camera, even the lenses. We are simulating lenses that used to be very big in the movies back in the 80s.
Hmm.
And also, Spielberg likes these long shots, these like super long shots that the camera is rolling for 1 minute or so. I do have these shots in the Diplodocus as well. I mean, I have a
Yes, I
couple of
noticed
them.
that.
They were a pain for the animators. There's one shot that is 1 minute 40 second long, and it was animated by three people over the period of over 3 months. This one shot. Um, so yeah, even the lighting, the use of the colorful lighting, that's very 80s. And the music, obviously, this is what I told my music composer. I told him Vangelis meets John Williams.
I just gotta say, I absolutely adore the color palette of your film and that the music too. I played the soundtrack over and over. It's so good.
Yeah, so all these things also I are very much in sync with how the original comic book looks like. It
Mm.
is very colorful, and I believe we were able to translate this watercolor, very strong, very big, I'd say bold color palette from these comic books to the movie.
I imagined it was a small team, but I didn't realize how small, and that actually blows my mind even more.
I mean, well, yeah. At the end, the team was much, much bigger. Definitely, it's just I mentioned this was the core team that actually did, the majority of work. However, later we were joined by more people, more artists, and as the production was progressing, we had. I think in the peak moment we might have had around 50 people working on it, in this like peak
Wow.
moment. And when you add it to the orchestra and the sound guys and the Foley artists and everybody behind the scenes, I mean, the number of people, it was big at the end.
After spending so long with these characters, what was your favorite character that stood out to you? What was your favorite to work with the most?
I really love Hocus Pocus. I think, he is
Yeah.
like kind of vivid character, and that was the most fun, to think about the movement. And also, what I love is the scale, because he can be like extremely sad and kind of, taken back, but also, he can be really like huge in gestures and theatrical. So you have like this huge variety, beautiful variety of what you can do with him. But also when I was thinking about, directing the characters, basically, what I did is I wrote like sort of a roadmap for animators. So basically, if you look closely, I mean, it's a very, I mean, you cannot see it, like it's not very visible, but it's there if you know about it. This roadmap for each character was signifying where we are in the story, like what moment in the story we are. So basically, when you take a look at Hocus Pocus, for instance, his his main feature in terms of the movements was his expressiveness. So basically, the more the more he turns into this dark side, and the more theatrical in movements and pompous he is. And at the end, when he kind of finds his balance, he is also toned down and more natural in terms of movements. It's
Yeah.
the same with entomology, that she actually, over the period of the story, I mean, she opens to emotions. She's very hidden, I'd say, and she doesn't want to get involved in things. She wants to follow her routine, and that is reflected with how much she's moving. So I even told the animators not to use all the controls in the beginning. So later, when she is open to emotions, she is more open to movement in a sense. And that the same was about Diplodocus and his ears, for instance, that his arc is from becoming passive to active. So his ears in the beginning are more, floppy, and they just basically they are a problem for him, And later, when he is like very much into action, he even gestures with his ears. So, and these little things, I wrote a document called a Bible, film
Mhm.
Bible for the whole movie before we started, and that was also quite an interesting guide for the animators to actually to play with animation. So yeah, all in all, I think it was I loved Hocus Pocus most, but I think all of us, we had a lot of fun with all the characters.
Yeah, I definitely read that when I was watching the film. Like they're kind of coming out of their shells over the course of the time of the story, and yeah,
Yeah,
I like seeing that. It's like it's those little details.
plenty of details, and I think I even uploaded this clip of this little plate that
I
falls off
saw
the
that.
right. Yeah, it was really another thing, and often we were using this, the our internal messenger, during the production, and we even created a little plate GIF.
Oh no.
So whenever, yeah, so it was
Play in this
a,
shot. I guess the next question would be, would you ever consider returning to Diplodocus for a sequel series or maybe even another one of his works?
Oh yeah, that definitely. And the actually, there were plans to do so, and just the idea of having most of the assets already in place and the visual language already developed this world. I even started writing the sequel, and it's quite advanced. However, the studio, the producer, they weren't, which is a sad story now. They weren't happy with the financial results of the film. So there were a couple of things, promotion wise, and basically, the financial side didn't work for them. So what happened is that they didn't green light, the sequel. And most of my team and me, we do not work for the studio anymore. So
Mm.
I have no idea if I ever, if I'm ever gonna be able to make the sequel. All of us now work somewhere else, and we are working on the next projects.
Yeah, that is unfortunate, but hopefully things change. But if not, I guess what else are you working on? What's the future looking like for you?
Yeah, so I'm quite on the, I just completed this 1.5 hour making of the Diplodocus, which I'm posting in, short, like on LinkedIn and some other social media. I'm posting, just a small excerpt of the big thing. The whole movie, the whole 1.5 hour documentary, is included on Blu-ray and DVD that we've just released.
Mm.
And but in the meantime, I'm thinking of my next projects, and these are two types of projects, very different to Diplodocus. So first of all, I am going back to drawing my comic books. I
Ooh.
quite recently released my second graphic novel in Fantagraphics in
Hmm.
the super. So that's funge. It's Latin word for mushrooms. So it's a 400 something page comic book that has just been published in
Right.
Fantagraphics. But before this book, my first ever graphic novel in Fantagraphics was Mr. Lightbulb. This one,
Huh.
600-page black and white graphic novel, and
Wow.
this is pretty much my next dream, project. So this is
Huh.
a very, very personal book for a bit older audience. So I think,
Mm.
families obviously, but not for kids. And this is something that I am developing at the moment, which is an, an animated adaptation of Mr. Lightbob. So that's one thing. And besides that, and that's the fun part of, and the great thing about, us working together. Even though my team, we are not in our studio that we did the podcast in. We are in some other studio, and now my friend who was the art director for the Platycus, he is now directing a 2D feature film for kids, and I am animation supervisor and I am story advisor for this film. So we sort of, switched places. Exactly, but we are still, working together, and while making this next feature, this time 2D, so smaller, um but maybe which would, well, maybe we need that, maybe slightly less complex
Okay.
than Platycus. But we are still working together and thinking about developing next ideas. And yeah, Mr. Lightbulb is something that I'm very much looking forward to.
Well, I'll have to check that out. I was gonna check out fungi, so I'll put that on my list. In fact, I'll put them in the description so people can go and check out, buy it, and whatnot. Also, the director's cut for Diplodocus. What's new in it? Because I wanted to ask what's different.
Yeah, well, so basically, director's cut is almost 11 minutes longer than the official cut. And the thing is that director's cut is the original cut of the
Hmm.
film. So what happened is that, the sales agent, they thought that the movie would work better if it's trimmed. My personal opinion, it did not.
Yeah.
And I love director's cut much more. So basically, this is my full vision. I believe, director's cut is just crazier, and but at the same time, it makes more sense because all the information is there. So you can, I believe, while watching, director's cut, you can understand characters' motivations better than in the official cut. I mean, you understand why Entamaji doesn't want to sing, You learn it from the scout because there's a musical piece in it, and she doesn't want to be involved in it. She's like, I'm not singing. And then
Huh.
later we get to know why. It's also, it consists of like much more absurd, crazy jokes that were removed in the official version. And one of them is uh, there's this, magical competition on Planet Fear. And before Hocus Pocus, there's another guy that comes over with his vacuum cleaner and he just blows into a pipe of vacuum cleaner. And the jury goes like, is it magic? I mean, like, go. So, yeah, so it's like lots of plenty, like really crazy, tiny things. Um, and I think the rhythm is just better of the overall movie. So these are not like completely different films. I mean, they are alike. However, this is more like it's obviously it's the matter of taste and the matter of me working on it for such a long period of time. I just feel that this version is full and it's complete, and this is the version that I really love.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we're gonna wrap it up there. Thank you so much for being here. Any final closing thoughts you would like to share?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Let's stay in touch, and
Yeah.
whatever new comes in my life and appears in my life. If I mean, I will let you know.
And as always, stay ultimate, stay comedians.